All right, I apologize about the computer snafu that is going on, but we seem to have a computer malfunction. As John was talking, we do have John back on the air right now with us. And John, I do have to say that I'm a little weirded out by what happened there, because my computer, I don't turn this computer on unless it is time for broadcast. It's always updated. Everything is always working well. And for it to absolutely shut down like that is very, very abnormal during this show.
Well, I don't know what to tell you. I'm just the guest.
I'm weirded out, my friend. I am weirded out right now.
I hear you. Well, I like I said, I don't know what to tell you. Things happen. I kind of think that when this property, we have the portals here on the property, and what we've been able to discern, and that is that the portal that's in the living room, we have a lot of guests that come, to the property, and usually within about 45 minutes, they seem to begin to start having experiences here. And they will feel like they're smelling things, seeing things, hearing things, tasting things in the vicinity of the portal. And very often it seems like the two are finding their frequency match. And once that match occurs, we get people years later that call me and say, you know what, we're still having weird experiences. We're still are having dreams. We're feeling like we're still attached to the ranch. And I say, well, it's just kind of what happens. I mean, once you're here, to some degree, in some respects, maybe you're always here. And it's not an unpleasant thing, but people, over the years, we have a very strong relationship with our visitors. And I tell people, if you're going to come here, be really well grounded. If you're going to have any kind of interaction with anything on this ranch, please be very well grounded spiritually. Don't bring your kids. Be in a place where you have an open mind and you have an open spirit where you're ready to deal with whatever you see, hear, or interact with, because it's a very strange, peculiar, state of mind, state of energy, state of whatever. And, I've had many broadcasts where I've done interviews and things have shut down. So this is not the first time this has happened.
Well, it always seems to happen when we start talking about some really high strangeness stuff on this show. And, it isn't the first time. I doubt it'll be the last, but it always intrigues me when it happens because I'm always trying to figure out why. Because I try and keep this computer that we are broadcasting on very, very clean and very, very up to date, so that way we don't have any issues like this. But basically what happened was, all of a sudden, as I'm staring at my computer, all of a sudden I hear this loud crack in my headphones, and both my broadcast screens go absolutely black. And then it just took absolutely forever for everything to come back on. So, we're going to call it what it is, a technical glitch. I'm not going to lie. I may put my tinfoil hat on now, John. I may do that because I have one right behind me. But the main thing is we're back up and running. We're going with this now. Now, you mentioned moments ago that people who come to your yard, leave with strange feelings. Is it because that maybe they're getting some sort of attachment from the property?
I don't know if it's an attachment. I think more what it is that they're curious. They want to find out what's going on here. They want to understand what they feel, because almost everybody that comes here, they will usually by the time they pass the bridge, which is maybe 3 or 4 miles to the north of us, before Highway 85, they will tell us that they feel like they're going into a different area, like something has changed. They're not in the same reality that they were before they got here. And, I just tell them, I say, I've been here 22 years almost. And so for me, I don't really feel it anymore, but I used to feel the same thing whenever I would go to town to go to Home Depot to get parts to fix something here on the ranch. I could literally discern an energy difference as soon as I would cross over the bridge. And I've had so many people tell me that, and, normally I don't even speak about it on a broadcast, but, because of what just happened, I figured it's kind of relevant. But yeah, people tell us, years later that they still feel like they feel that energy. I've got a friend that's a very dear friend of ours that came out from Hawaii and spent some time with us, and she loves to come out. And she told me that she feels still like she is directly connected to the ranch. And I talk to her usually once or twice a week. And, she says that she can still feel, that sort of bond or whatever it is. So, yeah, I guess it depends on how sensitive somebody is. And I guess it depends on, how much of a investment they make in the emotions and things as far as being here for their visit.
Now, you also mentioned you don't allow children on your property?
It's not that I don't allow them. I just discourage it. I believe that children are very, very impressionable and very, let's just put it this way. I've seen kids come out here, when people came out to work with horses and train horses and things for us, and usually it's women, and usually they have young kids. And, if they don't have daycare or something, they just tell the kids to come out and, play on the property and bring their toys and things like that. And I have seen what I consider to be, a radical shift in the personality of the kids while they're here. They get very hyper. They begin to backtalk and act, unusual in terms of what their parents or the mother would tell me that their children are usually very well behaved and orderly. And they get out here and they act like they've, got a really bad sugar high. And, I've observed that a number of times. Kids that start getting real mouthy, saying things and swearing and just doing things that are out of character for them. And so gradually I just decided to try to limit the exposure the kids have here. And I just don't think they're ready for this much high energy. The property itself puts out a ton of energy, and it also takes in a lot of energy. We have a real problem here with batteries. You can go out and buy like the most expensive Optima red top batteries, $180 a piece to put in your vehicle. And 3, 4, 5 months, they're dead as a hammer, and you take them back and you have to replace them. Doesn't matter whether you buy, cheapy Walmart batteries or you buy the most expensive you can find. 4 to 5 months is all they're going to last. And flashlight batteries that might last a week and a half, with practically no use. Batteries in general, electromagnetics here, there's a lot of interference. We've had people that have tried to fly drone aircraft off the property to take aerial photographs. They cannot get the planes, to even take off. If they do take off, they don't seem to be able to control them. They crash real easily. So there's just all sorts of weird EMF kind of stuff going on out here.
Did you ever look into the idea of portals or a vortex on the property?
Well, we know we have portals. We actually had a team that came out from Mount Shasta a couple of years ago, and we're actually working on trying to get them to come back again. They brought a lot of really expensive, very sophisticated gear that was scientific gear. They laid out the entire property on a electronic grid, and they had the ability to monitor almost every square inch. And they spent a few days here doing that. During that period of time, when they turned on the grid and then they went around with some special instrumentation, we could see not just 2 portals on this property, but dozens of them. The place looked like Swiss cheese. I mean, I was almost afraid to take a step forward after I saw that because it looked like a 3D representation on the screen, and it looked like literally we were going to fall down a bunch of holes. I've never seen anything like it my entire life. I've never seen it in normal physical reality here. But when they turned that thing on, I'm not kidding you, it just looked like a million termites or something had made all these tunnels all over the property.
That sounds completely insane. How have you kept people away, John? How do you... I mean, you don't seem like the kind of guy who isn't a friendly guy. You seem like a kind of guy who's inviting, and a kind of guy who is someone who, you know, likes having people around. Yet, with the attention that the Stardust Alien Ranch is having, I'm sure you're getting spectators from all over the world just thinking they can walk up on your property.
We have had exactly that problem. We have people that show up from other countries that don't even speak English, and they just stand there at the front gates, you know, and I go out to find out what's going on, and, you know, they can't even speak English to me. We just had some folks like that about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and one of the two men that showed up handed me this little device, looked like a piece of rice, and he said, you know, pointed to my ear, like, you know, put this in your ear so you can understand what I'm saying. And I ended up having a conversation with a female that was all the way across the world that had sent these two individuals to our property to find out information about purchasing it and information in general. And she said that she had had no luck trying to contact me by phone or email or anything else, which makes no sense to me. But, you know, so she literally sent these people here at night to come in and talk to me. And I told her, I said, look, I don't take interviews, you know, with walk-ups. You know, you have to make an appointment. You have to set up, you know, a legitimate appointment. And I never heard from them again. But, you know, that's the kind of thing. We have people that are going into the military and they're getting, like, tattooed. And apparently there's a few tattoo parlors out there that do Stardust Ranch tattoos with aliens and samurai swords, and I guess it's like a whole little subculture now. And these guys ship off to the Middle East, and they're all tatted up with, you know, ink about us.
Well, that's not a bad thing if they think it's a good thing for seeking and destroy.
Yeah, well, that's it. I asked them why they do it, and they say because it makes them feel tough. You know, that you know, having that samurai sword, you know, on their shoulder or on their back or their chest, you know, that it's, you know, going to give them extra confidence to go out there and do their job, you know. So, yeah, I guess that's okay. It's just, you know, it's one of those indirect things that you would never think of happening, but apparently it's happening.
We only have about a minute and a half here, and I hate to do this to our audience, but because we have other stations on board, we do have to go for a break here in about 1 minute. Do you regret buying this property?
Well, if I had it to do all over again, I wouldn't do it, only because of the fact that, you know, my real thing was I just wanted to raise horses, and eventually I got into rescuing horses. And, you know, there's other things that I wanted to do in my life. You know, I still managed to go on and have a successful practice as a counselor and a therapist. But, you know, honestly, this was the left turn that I never thought that in a million years that I'd ever have taken in my life. I just had to cope with it and make the best out of it.
Wow. You know, me bravely way up here in Canada would say I would love to go down there and see what this is all about. But it really is something different when you are there and you are going through that situation on a daily basis. John, I'm going to get you to hold on right now. Unfortunately, I do apologize for our computer going down during the broadcast about 15 minutes ago. We still have to do our station identification for those who do pick up this show live. So you bear with us. We are going to take a quick break here for 7 minutes. You know how it goes. And then we will be back with more John Edmonds on the Stardust Ranch down in Arizona right after this on the mighty SOR. So please stay tuned because we got some real interesting radio coming up right after this.
Hey, space travelers, it's Joe Roop, your host of Spaced Out Saturdays. Come join me as we explore the realms of the paranormal, the esoteric, and everything in between every Saturday night at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. You know the truth is out there. Don't get caught sleepwalking. Come join Spaced Out Saturdays. That's every Saturday night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, right here on spacedoutradio.com.
Psychic Sundays, spiritual communication, ET contact, Sasquatch in your backyard, we will have it all on Cosmic Passport with me, Elizabeth Anglin. Each Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, at spacedoutradio.com, I will take you on a journey of enlightenment. The goal is learning from the soul on out. We'd love it if you joined our experience, Cosmic Passport, heard Sundays at spacedoutradio.com.
365 days a year, we're in the field, investigating UFO sightings, talking to alien abductees, and visiting secret military locations like Area 51. We're UFO Seekers, official partner of Spaced Out Radio. Follow our daily search for the truth at ufoseekers.com or like us on social media. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
From coast to coast to coast, Blacklight Uncharted is taking on the paranormal across Canada. From ghostly hauntings to the UFOs flying above in conjunction with MUFON Canada, they're closely investigating what's going on in the northern skies and checking out the apparitions that walk among us. Check out our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com. We want to know your thoughts, we want to hear your experiences, and we want you to share your stories. The answers are out there, and we intend to find them.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spacedoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spacedoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Want to learn more about aliens, cover-ups, conspiracies, cryptids, and the paranormal? All you have to do is tune in S4 as we take over the Spaced Out Radio night, starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, each and every Saturday night, right after Spaced Out Saturdays. Hi there, this is Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. Join me, Corey Ruiz, and friends as we discuss the hot topics of the night. It's fun, entertaining, and as dark as the night. Find us at spacedoutradio.com.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
Are you an experiencer? Have you had run-ins with strange creatures you can't explain? ETs, Dogman, Bigfoot, werewolves? They're enough to scare the daylights out of anyone. Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski from your 4-Cop. And on the last Monday of every month, you can listen to me and the host, Dave Scott, talk about the weird and the strange being reported on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going to bring my investigations and sources, you bring your experiences, and we'll figure out the rest together. Strange Days on Spaced Out Radio. Come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com.
There's a lot of strange going on in this world, and we can help you find out what's going on with you. Paranormal, cryptids, UFOs in the sky, aliens in your bedroom tickling your toes. We have the investigators you need to find out the answers you deserve. All you have to do is head to spacedoutradio.com. Your information is 100% confidential. The SOR Sightlines Report. It's free, and we're here to help.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our Advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the second hour of Space Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you with us. Good to be back on. Remember, if you're listening on Spreaker, go to part 2 of this broadcast because during the first hour we had a technical glitch that seemed to shut down our show. John Edmonds, our guest tonight, says it happens quite a bit when he's on the air doing interviews, so I guess we shouldn't be surprised. Tomorrow night on the program, author Robbie Graham is going to join us. We're going to stay in the field of ufology, but how Hollywood looks at the way and forms the way we think about UFOs and aliens. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. Good to have you with us. We are also live on the Fringe.fm, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Stare Couracious. Stare Couracious is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets the password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect live with me during the show as well. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can also join us for live chat in the SOR Space Travelers group. We're on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/spacedoutradio. All of our archives are there. And our website normally is spacedoutradio.com. However, it is being rebuilt from last week's hacking incident, so we're hoping to get it on the air up and running here in the next 24 to 48 hours. At least that's what I've been told. So you're going to have to wait for your plethoras on that one. We have John Edmonds, owner of the Stardust Ranch. He has owned it for the last 22 years. Strange anomalies happening on a daily basis there. I don't know if I would live there. The brave side of me says, yeah, I want to go. But John, it literally is living in a science experiment that you have no control over on a daily basis, isn't it?
It pretty much is, Dave. I mean, we've had offers to, sell the ranch as long as we will continue to live here. People have told us they don't want to disturb the variables, and so they're willing to buy the ranch, but then they want us to live here like we're part of the experiment. And I keep telling them the reason I want to sell the ranch is because I want to get off the ranch. So, it's, I don't know what's stranger, the stuff that goes on the ranch or all the stuff that surrounds it in terms of the media, in terms of, all the fake news that's put out about this place. I mean, every time I look on Facebook or, I've looked in, like USA Today, there's headlines out there that say, oh, Alien Ranch sells for $6.5 million. And I'm thinking to myself, gee, did this place sell and I don't even know about it? You know, I mean, it's just the amount of information that's out there about this place is amazing.
Now, you do have it for sale at $5 million. That has been very public.
Yeah, it is up for sale. It is listed at $5 million. And, you know, we've had a few different people that keep saying that they're going to do something. And I keep telling them, put 20% down. We'll lock it up, put it in escrow, and we'll make the arrangements. But so far that hasn't happened yet.
Have you ever been approached by someone like Robert Bigelow, who used to own the Skinwalker Ranch in Utah, or other government agencies who want to take a look at what is happening on your property?
I have been. I've not only been approached by individuals that state that they're working on behalf of our government, but I've also had individuals that say the same thing for foreign governments. And, you know, the bottom line is this, and that is, you know, if you're really serious about doing something, I'm interested in talking to you. But if you're just doing it for the thrill or just doing it because of the fact that you just want to fool around, no, you know, don't waste my time and don't dishonor yourself.
It's got to be frustrating because of the media attention that surrounds your property. You really have to do your due diligence in trying to figure out what's real and what's not when it comes to offers on your property.
Well, it is. And, you know, the general public, there's a lot of people that, you know, they kind of say, well, it sounds like it's possible, but it's such a crazy story. I don't know. And, you know, I just tell people this is not the kind of place for a family ranch. This is not the kind of place to buy. Unless, you know, you're really looking for something that's completely different than anything else out there. This is going to be a place that's going to challenge you. You know, if you're the He-Man type and you want to kill aliens, hey, bring it on. You know, this is your ticket. If that's not what you want, you know, I would really think twice about it. It would make a great investment property for somebody that wanted to, you know, use it as an opportunity either for research or use it as an opportunity for, you know, some other commercial purpose. You know, we just got, what's his name from Apple, Bill Gates. They just bought, I think they just made about $100 million investment in a town that they're going to build that is only a couple of miles away from us. And then on the other side of us, there's a company that's very like Disney, but it's not Disney itself. And they're going to build a couple of 100-acre water park and, you know, a huge entertainment center that's just to the south of us. So, you know, this area is going to be prime for investment. You know, every single acre here is going to go through the roof in terms of price. And, you know, quite frankly, you're buying 2 portals, a beautiful house, a pool, a guest house. You know, you can land a helicopter on the back of the property. You know, $5 million for that. It's really not that much.
Now, your neighbors, like when you first purchased there, you didn't have any neighbors. Now you do. Do your neighbors have that same type of activity going on?
I don't know my neighbors. Really, nobody's ever made an effort to come over and meet us. And quite frankly, I don't feel like knocking on doors and, hey, you know, I'm the guy that kills aliens that lives next door to you. Somehow or another, I don't think that's going to, you know, really go over too well. We do have people that live in the area, you know, that have come and left notes on the gate and said, hey, could you please call me? And I've called them and they've told me that they have been here, you know, generation after generation and that they have had experiences. I had a realtor that stopped me at my front gates and told me that she had been living out here for 2 or 3 years and that she has been attacked. Some of the experiences that my wife has gone through here on the ranch, she's been through the same thing. And she said she was so grateful that, you know, somebody had enough guts to stand up and finally talk about it. You know, it's not a secret. I mean, you know, people have been filing reports to the Arizona Livestock Board about mutilations on cattle and horses out here for at least 20 years. You know, we're not the only ones. I mean, there are other people. It's just nobody else has ever, you know, just had the brass to stand up and say something.
I was going to ask that because one of our listeners, Robin, has a question about how do the horses react to everything that is going on?
In general, horses are pretty much in the moment. And so if there's something that's going on in the moment, they react to it. But for the most part, they are, they're not particularly worried. Many of these horses have been here a long time. Some of them, come and go. But, we have a hardcore group of a few horses that have been here, that we ride and that are our own personal horses. And that they've been here, they've seen everything, and they just, as long as they get fed twice a day, they got clean water, they get their carrots, they're pretty much okay with everything.
So they're not reacting any type of adversely towards the extraterrestrials or the strange animals that are coming onto the property?
Well, they react to horses. If we bring horses in, that are coming into the property for any reason, yeah, they get real reactive to that. But the only time that I can honestly say that I've ever observed a lot of reaction was when we had a giant black triangle that was about maybe 150, not even 200 feet above the front corral where there was a herd of horses, and the shadow from the ship blacked out the whole sky. And so they felt like there was some kind of predator kind of over them, and they were very excited by that, and they ran around a lot. I called Peter Davenport in Washington, and he told me to call the sheriff's department. I called the sheriff's department. They sent out a deputy. The deputy parked his car in front of the ranch, made sure that I couldn't see any distinguishing marks on him in terms of a nameplate, any kind of a badge, nothing. And he totally refused to write a report. He stood there for maybe 40 minutes with us, and we sat there and watched this whole spectacle, and there was probably 4 or 5 of us. And the whole time I was talking to Peter Davenport and giving him a blow-by-blow description.
Hey, John, I do have to ask, and this may seem like a weird question, but have you ever walked out to your barn and found the manes of your horses braided?
Actually, I have a bunch of times. That's the first time anybody's ever asked me that. And I never even thought about it. But yes, I've seen that many times.
The reason why I ask is I have talked to a number of Sasquatch researchers who say that Sasquatch or creatures like it like to braid the manes of horses. And I actually have 3 listeners. One lives on the Sierra Nevadas, one used to live in Colorado, and one who lives just outside of Toronto, who all have Bigfoot activity in their properties or around their woods, and all of them have had their manes braided on their horses.
That's really, in all the interviews I've ever had, Dave, that is the most unusual question anybody has ever asked me. And until this very moment, it never occurred to me that it could be something like that, because we see these things that Jimmy Church has named Brillo men during one of my interviews, and they look like these great big, they kind of look like the Michelin Man, from the TV commercials, except that instead of being white, they look like a rusty kind of color, like a barbed wire fence that's rusted. And we see them out in the desert, and they're huge. I mean, they're probably 9 or 10 feet tall, and they're probably, if they were of physical stature, I'd say they've got to be at least 400 or 500 pounds if they were, like a man or something like that. They have come onto the ranch. They seem to be interdimensional in the fact that they can walk right through solid objects. The horses have interacted with them, but not in a fearful way. They're huge. I mean, they're just gigantic. And, I've never tried to do anything with them because they're very intimidating. And I've never been able to get more than probably 40 or 50 feet away from them, but we do see them. So that's as close to a Bigfoot as I can make any kind of connection. But, in 22 years, I have had dozens and dozens of horses with their manes that were braided. And I always thought maybe it was just another horse somehow or another, being affectionate to the horse and mouthing the horse's mane, and somehow or another it just got twisted up that way. I never never even thought about it beyond that.
Well, I'm going to give credit to my listener, Joe, for that question, because he's one of the gentlemen who has had his horses' manes braided on his property in the Sierra Nevadas. And if you do me a favor and check out with some quality Sasquatch researchers, they may be able to fill you in on that a little bit more. Or I can get, off the air, I can get Elizabeth Anglin, one of our people who used to live she hosts our Sunday show. She actually had her horse's manes braided in Colorado. I could get her to contact you as well about that.
Yeah, that's fine. I just, I'm kind of shocked. I mean, I never, when you think of Sasquatch, you don't really normally think of the desert. I mean, there's nothing out here for them to eat. We have the only water that is available, to an animal or something like that for probably at least 10 or 15 miles. But that might be another reason why they come here. We used to, before it started urbanizing a little bit, we used to get a lot of mountain lions. We would get deer. We would get all sorts of creatures that would come here because we have something called the Sacred Pond. And it's just a pond that I put in. It's about 40 feet in diameter, full of water. And I put it in because, in the summertime, it gets as high as 125, 126 degrees here, and there's no water. And I felt so terrible for the animals that I put it in so that, wild creatures could come here and get a drink. And, we get wild pigs, we get, you name it. I mean, stray dogs, coyotes, big birds, eagles, owls, you name it. Everything comes here for water.
Right. So, have you ever, or what was it like the first time you saw something strange walking on your property? Did you call the police, or did you go out after it on your own?
Well, I've become more and more armed over the years. And, pretty much everything out here, we have like maybe 4 or 5 deputies for a tremendously large area. I don't even remember how many square miles it is anymore, but it's something ridiculous. And so, if you call the sheriff out here, especially in the old days, they might be a day to a day and a half before they'd get here. So I used to go out and pretty much deal with it myself. And, I've seen a lot of stuff over the years. I mean, I've seen stuff I just couldn't hardly believe. We, and also in the house, you were asking about strange events. We had an event during a power failure where my wife and I were sitting on the sofa. We had just been watching a movie, and the power went out, which in the old days was not that unusual. Now today we have massive solar systems on both the house, the guest house, everywhere, so we don't ever have those problems anymore. But back in the day, when the power went out, we saw this extremely bright white light in the corner of the house. And I looked at my wife and I said, "What do you think that is?" And she said, "I have no idea." And it literally, we saw 2 Roman soldiers, centurions, that were wearing the full centurion battle gear, literally walk right through our house and walk out the other side right through the wall. And they never saw us. It was like they were absolutely oblivious. It was like somebody shining a black and white projected old-time film, Spartacus or something like that, right on the wall. And except it was 3D. It wasn't like just a movie being projected on the wall. It was like a hologram or, an actual 2 people walking right through our house. So, we've been seeing things like this now for, 20 years.
What kind of creatures besides alien have you seen on your property?
Oh, boy, I'd have to think about that a little bit. We've seen the grays. We've seen 2 or 3 other species. This last summer, we started getting what people describe to us as mantis. We'd never seen those before, but now we seem to be getting those. Again, there's no communication with some of these creatures. We've had reptilians. We've had these things that look like velociraptors that have showed up in the living room twice, scared the absolute crap out of our visitors because in both cases we had a female guest that stayed the night and they woke up in the morning bright and early and this thing was standing over them, and it was, it looked like it was, ready to eat them. And I heard them scream, and they came running down the hall to the bedroom, and my wife and I, pounding on the door, and we opened the door, and they're terrified, and they're describing what they saw. So, there's a lot of stuff that we've seen. We've seen things with wings on them on the roof, scratching around. I went outside thinking there was a stray cat or something on the roof, and it turned out to be this thing that looked like a dragon with wings that was on the roof. And that one really, I hate to say it, but that one really did scare me, because when it turned around and looked at me, it had red eyes, and it looked like it was ready to breathe fire or do something. And with that one, I went back in the house to get a camera and get a gun, and when I came out, it was gone.
John, what do you say to your critics who say you're making all of this up, that you have a vivid imagination that you're trying to cash in on? Because, let's face it, the paranormal/supernatural community isn't really believing in a lot of things that happen in this field, yet this is something that you've never asked for. So what do you say to your critics who say you're full of it?
Well, I would tell them this, and that is, I'm not selling any products. I'm not making any money on this. I put in over $2.5 million into this ranch. Quite frankly, I don't give a damn what they think. I really don't. It's just one of those things. People have the right to say what they say. We've had lots of people that have come out here and seen things. We have, actual reports from the DNA samples. We've had government. We've had, various different universities come out here. We've had a lot of famous people come out here. And, most of the people that come out here, they tend to believe what we tell them and show them. So, it's one of those things. Back in the day before the Wright brothers, nobody believed it was possible to fly. Before the first heart transplant, nobody believed that was possible either. Nobody even thought you could cure hepatitis C until somebody finally came up with a cure for it. So, hey, that's okay. If we happen to be the first, if we happen to be, the people that, explain all this and show what's possible, there's going to be a lot of people that aren't going to believe in the beginning. Eventually they'll come around, and if they don't, it's their problem.
Question from Canadian Joe on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio. He's asking, John, have you ever called in a priest or a minister to perform any sort of exorcism at the ranch to see if that would work?
Yeah, we tried all that good stuff. We got nowhere. We've had various different religions that have come out and done their thing. We've had people that were devout Christians do their thing. It's never seemed to make any difference at all.
That is strange, because you think that, the power of Christ or the power of God would have some effect, because we hear so many people saying that they've used the Word of God as a way to push aliens out of their bedrooms, out of their homes, out of their way. So that kind of surprises me.
Well, my wife and I are both very spiritual people. We believe in God. We are people that absolutely, believe that there's an absolute good and there's absolute bad in this world, and we're absolutely aligned with the good. So all I can say is that, people have come out and done their best. It might have lasted for a little bit of time, a couple of weeks or so, but, we've had people that were, big-time psychics. We've had people come out that were, endowed with all sorts of various different skills and knowledge. It all works great for a little bit, and then it just resets and it goes right back to what it was.
Have you ever thought of cashing in on it, though? Setting up some bungalows to have people of the paranormal, come on in, maybe camp for a weekend, much like James Gilliland does on the East Eddy Ranch.
I got to tell you, Dave, I've thought about it. I've had people that have offered to do things, and, the bottom line is, this is not what my life is supposed to be about. My life is supposed to be about helping people and doing, things that are based on, doing much bigger and better things than dealing with this ranch. And, I never wanted it in the first place. if somebody wants to do something here, they should buy the ranch and just do it themselves.
Let's go to your first alien experience. How far into ownership of your property did you see your first UFO and then alien?
Within the very first few days that we were here, we started seeing UFOs. I had a dog that moved out to the property with us, and she got out and she ran off, and I went looking for her, and I drove my Jeep down south on Jackrabbit Trail or Tut Hill Road, the same road, and parked on the side of the road, got out and started looking for her. And I walked up this rise and back down a little bit on the other side, and maybe 50 or 60 feet in the air in front of me was a black triangle, and it was gigantic, and it was just hovering there. And that one really shocked me because I wasn't expecting to see anything. And the hair on my arms and legs, I had shorts on, just stood up. The hair on my head stood up. I could feel this electro, kind of like a magnetic kind of thing going on, where there was this great percussive force that I could feel like just bristling all over my body. I could feel it in the sternum, in my chest. It felt like a big bass sound from a big bass speaker. And I remember thinking I'm going to go and turn around and go back home and get my video camera, because by that time I'd actually bought a video camera. And when I seemed to come to, it was about an hour and 15 minutes later. I was standing there with a video camera hanging down from my shoulder. It was turned on, but there was nothing on it. The craft was gone, and I was absolutely sunburned from standing there.
That's almost like right out of Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
I guess.
Now, when you made your first contact with an extraterrestrial, can you describe what that feeling was for you? How were you reacting? Because I know when I had my first face-to-face contact with an ET back on around April 10th or 15th of 2014, I was frozen. I didn't know how to react. What did you go through?
Well, I guess we have to make a little bit of a clarification. Are you talking about a positive ET or a negative one?
Well, let's go back to that first experience.
Okay. That first experience, I had been seeing things out of the corner of my eye, and I couldn't really be sure exactly what I was seeing. It was like I would just catch the last little tail end of things. And I'd been seeing that for weeks. And I knew I was seeing something, but I didn't know what it was. And then one night, my wife and I were in bed, and my wife is a very, very heavy sleeper. And she actually wears a CPAP mask because she snores real bad. And she was sound asleep, and I was trying to go to sleep, but the machine makes noise, and quite frankly, I was having a hard time going to sleep. And I kept feeling like there was something in the room with us. And the next thing I knew, something reached over and touched me on my arm. And I had been kind of preparing for this, and I had taken a little aluminum baseball bat that was about 2 feet long. It's the kind of thing they give away on what they call Bat Day, for regular baseball games. And I took that and I put it in the bed rail next to me, just in case. And when I felt that thing kind of like grab my arm, I turned around and I reached up and I grabbed it, and I conked it on the head with that baseball bat as hard as I could. And literally it flopped over, and then it got up and it disappeared. And the other two that were in the room with me also disappeared.
I've had my ankle grabbed, so I know what that's like. It's an eerie feeling when it happens. Now, you mentioned about positive and negative ETs. A lot of people who've never had contact may not fully understand what you mean by that. Could you define what your premise is on the difference between the benevolent and the malevolent extraterrestrials that seem to come into your yard?
Well, I would tell you this, and that is, people think that Earth is being visited. Well, Earth is being visited, but there are literally quite a few races that are already here that have been here for probably thousands of years. And, they're already kind of part of society. They're not just part of American society. They're all over the world. So, the idea that ET, has just arrived, that's not true. We have regular visits, and I don't just mean me, but there are lots of people that have interactions. It's just very few people actually, like me, stand up and talk about them. July 30th, 2011, we had a woman that came out to the property from Phoenix. She was paid by somebody who was a celebrity to come out here and try to clear the property and try to clear specifically the spirit of the young man that killed himself in the living room. Because everybody kept saying that they thought that he was stirring things up out here, and maybe some of the things that were happening were because of him. And so she came out to do a clearing, and she brought two individuals with her that she said were ETs. Now, she didn't tell me she was bringing them. They just all showed up together in a small car, and when she got here, she introduced them, and then she told me that they were not human. And as much as I thought that was bizarre, I was kind of, also amazed. And so I had already made a list a long time ago of 100 questions that I would ask an ET if I ever had the chance. As funny as that sounds, I actually did it partly in jest and partly just in case it ever happened. Well, guess what? It happened. And so I got my list out, and I had 3 hours to ask as many questions as I wanted to during that period of time. I also asked for proof of who they were, and my final proof was that I asked them to show me a craft. And in the end, we ended up going outside. My wife and I sat in the back of our F-350 pickup truck on the tailgate, and we turned to our left, which was the east. And lo and behold, they brought out a ship that was like the size of the LA Coliseum, and it just hovered there across the street in a massive cloud bank. It was so large it had its own weather pattern with like thunder and a little bit of lightning, and it just changed everything right around it. And we sat there and looked at it and looked at each other for maybe 20 or 30 seconds, and then it pulled back into the clouds and it disappeared. So, there are positive ones out there. There are ones that are benevolent. There are ones that are willing to, given the right circumstances, try to do things to help humans to fix their world. And I think that's a very positive thing, and it's also what's given me a lot of hope about being able to, be around all this stuff. If I had gotten to the point, Dave, where I was so frustrated with everything here and I was so fed up with it that, I was almost ready to just walk away from the property. After that event, that gave me hope that maybe something could be worked out and that maybe in the future we could do something good with it.
Did you start being taken?
There are things that have happened. My wife is the person to talk to about those kind of things. I don't have very much recollection of it, but yeah, there are times that I apparently have disappeared from the property and ended up, returning, but, hours, and maybe even in one case particularly several days later.
Do you know where you're going? Have you tried hypnotherapy or anything?
Yeah, I have. I have about 8 or 10 hours of tapes of hypnotherapy for dealing with that. I really don't usually talk about it. It's something that there's a lot of PTSD that's associated with it. It's scary stuff. So that's for another time.
I can understand that. I can understand that, and I can also respect that as an ET contactee myself. So before we get to more on the alien talk, I want to get to some of our audience questions here. Claudia is asking, John, do you think that your entire area is just one giant powerful vortex that allows the veil to be lifted to such occurrences?
Honestly, I think that's pretty accurate. I know that it's not just happening right here on this property. I'm sure it's happening in the area. The Australia Mountains were actually named back in the 1840s by the Spanish. And the reason that they named them that name is because of the fact when they were out here, they saw things. They had experiences out here. And that was all the way back in the 1840s. And, you know, a little closer to home, I did an interview on a local TV station here about 4 weeks ago, and one of the original owners of the ranch called the TV station the next day, and she said, you know what, my husband and I, the reason we got off the ranch was because, you know, we were having similar experiences. And she was not the people, they were not the people that built the ranch, but apparently at some point in the 1970s, they actually lived here on the ranch. And she said she had some, you know, very frightening experiences and saw things that frightened her, and that's why they left. You know, and for those people to come forward and say that, you know, to me, all that did was just, you know, really validate what we've been going through.
Nigel is asking, has the military presence in your area, especially in the air, increased over time?
Yes, we are about 10 or 15 miles south of Luke Air Force Base. And, you know, they do a lot of training out here anyway. But, you know, I'm sure that they're encountering things because I've seen them, you know, actually interact with the orange orbs, you know, a few years ago. And we used to get a lot of, you know, these military helicopters, and they'd come out in little groups of 4 and 5, and it looked like they were at night hunting things. And, you know, so I'm sure, you know, there's something that, you know, that they're aware of. I can't imagine that the phenomena that's been going on here for so long that the military could just, you know, be unaware of it.
Robin is asking, do you think any of these portals actually go to different dimensions?
Well, I can tell you this, and that is I have video of the orbs up close, and when you look at them, they seem like they are multidimensional. You can see depth. You can see things inside of them. They're huge. You know, these orbs are not like the kind that you see in pictures where, you know, people say that they're entities or anything like that. These things are the size of barns. I mean, they're huge. You know, you could drive a full semi through one. And they look like they go somewhere else. So I don't know. I mean, there's definitely something huge, something that is remarkable, is definitely happening not only on this property, but it's happening in the vicinity as well. And that area is 17 miles south of the ranch where I see these orbs. I've actually, you know, clocked it on the odometer of the Jeep, so I know exactly how far away it is.
17 miles, about 30 kilometers for us Canadians. So just to clarify the whole meter thing there. But let me also ask you then, in regards to, you know, your own personal experiences, because you have had close encounters to these. I want to stick with the benevolent species before. Have they ever come around you and chatted with you? Because I know James Gilliland with the benevolent species that visit the East Eddy Ranch has stated many a times he's been standing in his kitchen brewing cups of coffee, and these extraterrestrial creatures will walk right into his house.
What I would tell you is this, and that is that we have different individuals that are directly associated with some of these races. And every time that I've had any kind of contact with them, it was because of the fact that I was able to set up kind of like an appointment through that person. They don't normally just like pop in and you know, hang out and have a beer. You know, we've, you know, met them not only here on the ranch, but we've also set up an appointment and met with them in Phoenix.
So when you had your negative encounter, and we might as well get into it, you are very famous for claiming that you have killed an alien gray. Could you take us through what happened that day or night?
The very first time it happened, I keep a samurai sword in a sheath, and I keep it, at hand. I keep weapons all over the house just in case, and it's not because of the fact that, I'm hoping to kill one of these things so I can, mount it over the fireplace. It's just because of the fact that I have animals and because of the fact that it's a dangerous situation and you have to protect yourself. I happened to be, it was about 6 o'clock. It was not even dark outside. I was walking from my kitchen out into my sunroom, which is about 800 square feet. And I went to walk out there, and one of these creatures was standing directly in front of me. And, I'd already tried many, many times to have some kind of positive communication or interaction with these creatures. There's absolutely no way that was ever going to happen. So the first thing I did was grab the sword, and this creature just stood there and looked at me, and it had something in one of its hands, some kind of instrument or some kind of weapon. I don't know what it was. But I ended up grabbing the sword and literally running it right through the abdomen into the wall behind it. And it didn't die per se. I couldn't take the head at that point. But it left enough fluid, and it left a giant chunk on the end of the sword that was about the size of like a big grapefruit. And when I pulled the sword out, that chunk was on there. And so I took it and put it into a glass container, sealed it, and got on the phone and started calling people to find out what you do with a chunk of dead alien or a chunk of wounded alien.
What happened to that piece?
I ended up going through a gentleman in Ohio who directed me to have a contact with Dr. Levengood in Grass Lakes, Michigan. And Dr. Levengood, after I explained the situation to him, he told me that he wanted me to go ahead and prepare it for transport. And so I followed his instructions to the letter, and I went ahead and sent it via FedEx directly to him.
And what were his results from testing it?
It took him a little bit of time, but when he had sent out various different cross-sections of the sample I sent him to various universities, what came back was the fact that the tissue was identified as unidentifiable. They said that it doesn't match anything on this planet, that the sample had hemoglobin in it, but it also ended up having chloroform in it, or chlorophyll in it, and that, to their knowledge, universally, nothing like that exists on any other creature, either, a human being, an animal, a plant, nothing. Nothing contains both of those different things together. And literally, Dr. Levengood, told me, he says, "John, you have the smoking gun. You have absolute proof of some type of alien life that has visited your ranch."
When you stabbed this alien gray with a samurai sword, was it attacking you? Was it being very offensive towards you?
Well, in previous, examples of behavior, I had been attacked. My wife had been attacked. I had already had 3 horses that had been killed. I'd had a couple of dogs killed. So I wasn't going to wait around to find out, whether, he was going to ask me to, sit down and, have coffee. I had to make a decision right then and there. And so I made the decision to kill it, or try to.
So at that point, how did you know it was one of the malevolent ones and not one of the benevolent creatures?
I've never met a benevolent gray. Every gray I've met has been threatening.
You got to come up here and meet my buddy Carl, then. The guy who showed up at my window. He's pretty good. Good. His he last time he came around this area, around Space Out Radio headquarters, I had a conversation, not me personally, but I was listening to a conversation between him and two of his buddies, one up my driveway and one in my backyard. I have about half an acre. And they were spread right out. And that clicking sound, I'm sure you've heard the conversations, that weird, strange clicking sound that goes on. You know, it was one of the weirdest things I've ever heard in my life.
You know, Dave, that's very interesting because I have never heard the grays. I've heard the clicking sound, but I never thought it was the grays. But it sounds, it's a very, it almost sounds like some kind of insect making,
yes,
you know, some like they're clicking their legs together, or something. You know, it's you know, those locusts. It almost sounds a little bit like that, but it's not as fast.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. And the funny part about it is we have a gentleman on this show who comes on once a month. His name is R. Keith Andrews, and I happen to be on the phone with him right after hearing this clicking sound. And I said, Keith, I got some strange stuff going on in my backyard. And he's like, he goes, have you heard any strange noises? I said, well, there was just this clicking sound that kind of reminded me of the movie Signs, you know, type of thing.
Yep.
And he's like, does it sound more like this? And he did the sound, and I'm like, that's it. And then within seconds of him doing that on the phone, all of a sudden I'm hearing that same noise in my backyard again. So it is an eerie feeling, John. It puts goosebumps on me.
I'll tell you, you know, you're blowing me away here because when I call horses, a lot of times I make that noise, and I have heard the same noise come back to me. And I had no idea that's what it was. I thought it was an echo or something. Oh, my God.
Well, you know what? Looks like it's an education for both of us tonight then. You know, the braids being made, the clicking. Let's see what else we can find here tonight. When you stabbed this creature, did it leak any fluid like blood? And if so, what color was it?
It looks like transmission fluid or brake fluid, except that it's acidic. It's very, very acidic. If you get it on you, it'll burn a hole in you. It burned the tile that it fell on. It burned the glass. I mean, like the wood around the glass of the glass doors that it sprayed on. Yeah, it's bad stuff. I mean, and the other thing is that not all of them smell, but some of them smell like rotten meat. They just smell like if you've ever smelled like chicken or turkey that's gone bad, that's what they smell like.
Unfortunately, I've never smelled them, but when you killed this one, was there any other aliens around or grays around at that time that saw you do that? And what, if so, what was their reaction?
Yeah, there were two others that were in the room, further into the room, and I had two of my Rottweilers at the time that were out, you know, and they were right there, and they attacked both of the other grays. And unfortunately, within a week, both of those dogs literally shriveled up and died.
Wow.
It was the weirdest thing. It was horrible. The dogs, within 12 hours after they had, you know, physically attacked these two creatures, it was as if they suddenly became like dehydrated, and no matter how much they would eat, no matter how much they would drink, they just continued to shrink, and they lost almost all their weight, and they looked horrible, and then they passed. And there was nothing I could do for them.
Almost like they immediately came down with a fast, rapid spreading cancer or something.
It was more as if like they just became emaciated. These were huge dogs. They were, you know, 120, 130 pounds apiece, and they literally and totally perfectly healthy. And, you know, in just a very short period of time, they became emaciated. They, you know, no matter how much they drank water, no matter how much food they tried to eat, they couldn't shake it, and they just passed away. And I was heartbroken.
I hate to ask this because I don't mean this as a callous question, but how many dogs have you been through in your 22 years because of this?
Well, 3 or 4. I mean, the last one was March 13th of this year. I had a pit bull that I had for years, and she was a real sweetheart. Her name was Daisy. And as we were coming into the house from, just doing stuff out on the property, one of these things appeared right in front of Daisy's face, and it startled her, and she leaped up and tried to attack it. And the gray reached down with something that looked like sort of like one of these very powerful mini flashlights, but instead of having a light attached to it, there was some kind of, I don't know what it was, but I guess it heated up, or it was a laser or something. But it reached down and touched the dog in the middle of her chest, right below her throat, and it burned a hole in her the size of a golf ball, and she died instantly.
We only have about 4 minutes before we go to break. Would you like to come back for the third hour of the show, John, or are you a little tied up?
No, I'd be happy to.
Wonderful, wonderful. So we'll keep going, and thank you so much for that. How many other aliens have you been in physical altercations with?
Honestly, it's just the Greys. I mean, the 2 times that we've had experiences with the reptilians, quite frankly, they were so intimidating. I was trying to get away from them, so I would not try to mess with those things. I mean, if you can imagine yourself trying to fight like a dinosaur that's like, 8 or 9 feet tall, that acts like it's about to, rip you apart and eat you. I'm sorry. I'm a pretty brave guy, but I'm not going to mess with that.
Do you worry, and this question comes from Trip here in the chat room, do you worry about after the point of sale on the property, about the future of anybody else who takes over that property? Does that bother you at all?
No, it really doesn't, because, I mean, the first thing I've done with every realtor that I've dealt with is I've told them, if you want to sell this property, you have to go and listen to some radio broadcasts, go on YouTube. You got to be fully educated to the point where you can answer questions about the story, and I'm convinced that you know what you're doing and that you understand what you're dealing with. And part of the reason that I've come out and I've been so absolutely blatantly honest with people is because I don't want to hear any crap after the sale and have people come back and say, oh, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. If you don't know what you're getting yourself into and you buy this property, God help you, because you know what? You were not paying attention.
It is something that has to be, it can't be overlooked what has happened. Anybody who does their due diligence is going to find out what is happening. If you were to pick the perfect person to buy your property, who would it be? Would it be someone of government source? Would it be someone who has had alien experience? Who would it be?
Honestly, I think the perfect person to buy this ranch would be somebody who's got, obviously a fair amount of money. And second of all, would be somebody that wants to try to take this property and use it for something very positive. I don't believe that energy is necessarily, good or bad. I think what happens is that a narrative develops around the people that are, associated with the energy, and it becomes good or bad according to that. And, I'm an absolute rookie. I mean, everything that's happened here, I've done and acted upon, out of instinct and just out of default, more or less. If I could do it all over again, and I had to buy the property and go through these experiences, I probably would have tried to be a lot less reactive. But, it's not like this place came with a CD or a DVD that I could sit down and understand it and, get a background on it and get some instruction. I just had to deal with what I came across.
John, I'm going to get you to hold on right there as we're going to hop out for our final break of the night. John Edmonds is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. He owns the Stardust Ranch, otherwise known as the Alien Ranch, down in Arizona. If you got $5 million and you like aliens, it's for sale. I don't know how negotiable, but it's for sale. If I had the money, I'd buy it. I can honestly say that. I would. somebody's going to answer the questions as to what's happened to me. We'll be back with more John Edmonds right after this.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
There's stories, then there's the truth. Do any of us really trust the news anymore? This is Jamie Sexton, owner of Rebel Planet News. The third Thursday of every month, I appear on SpacedOutRadio.com to bring you the truth you deserve, without mainstream media lies or alternative media fear-mongering. We'll get to the heart of the story and deliver the truth you're seeking. So come join us here for the Rebel Planet at SpacedOutRadio.com.
We're lighting the void on Saturday nights on Spaced Out Radio. Hey, this is Joe Roop, and I'm hanging out in SOR headquarters every Saturday night, bringing you the latest news when it comes to the weird and strange. Bigfoot, occult, UFOs, ghosts, and everything in between, I got you covered. You can tune in to SpacedOutRadio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. Come travel into the void with us on Spaced Out Saturdays.
Not ready for bed on Saturday night? Right after Spaced Out Saturdays, hop on over to S4 with Corey Ruiz and me, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. With S4, there are no limits to what we try and uncover. From government conspiracies to helping clean up the paranormal, no topic is safe on S4. We get to the heart of the matter, of the subjects you want to learn more about. So tune in on S4 starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, only on SpacedOutRadio.com.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories, from alien encounters to the latest conspiracies. You won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
There's a lot of strange going on in this world, and we can help you find out what's going on with you. Paranormal, cryptids, UFOs in the sky, aliens in your bedroom tickling your toes. We have the investigators you need to find out the answers you deserve. All you have to do is head to spacedoutradio.com. Your information is 100% confidential. The SOR Sightlines Report. It's free, and we're here to help.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories.
It's Cosmic Sundays with me, Elizabeth Anglin, in Cosmic Passport. Let me take you down a 3-hour spiritual journey where we will get into everything from ET contact to Psychic Sundays. It's a journey of listening and learning together with some of the best professionals in their fields. You can tune in to Cosmic Passport at spacedoutradio.com every Sunday starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, author Robbie Thomas is going to join us. We're going to talk about Hollywood's influence on you and I when it comes to extraterrestrials and UFOs. Ever notice the last 20 years or so, the experiences have been very violent and negative? We're going to find out why. Tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and over 160 countries around the world. Great to have you with us as well. We are also live on the Fringe.fm, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Stare Couracious. Stare Couracious is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, we're all over the place on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can also follow me on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our brand new YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio. And all you got to do is go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. There it is. It'll pop up. Subscribe to that. We're on iHeartRadio in the United States. TalkStream Live. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Our website should be up and running very, very soon. We're getting over a hacking incident last week. Tim Doyle is working on it effortlessly and feverishly to get a plethora of features back on there for you. So I will let you know as soon as it is up and running. For the final time tonight, we introduce the owner of the Stardust Ranch. John Edmonds is joining us. His extraterrestrial stories are nothing short of phenomenal. And I got to tell you, John, I am absolutely blown away by your stories here. And one of the questions that I have for you is, how have all these experiences, from the alien contact to killing of aliens to the people around you in your world, both positive and negative, how has this shaped you as a person now?
Well, I think it's made me probably a lot more thoughtful in terms of, what my life is and what I want it to be and what I don't want it to be. And, I've had a chance to meet a lot of individuals that probably normally one wouldn't meet. So I've been exposed to a lot of things other than just what, happens here on the ranch. And, some of that is real positive. I mean, I've had a chance to meet some really tremendously interesting and great people and have great conversations. So, I've had a chance to learn a lot, from life experience that way. It's taught me the true meaning of love, I think, and the fact that, my wife, in spite of the fact that she has been absolutely traumatized by the experiences here, she's continued to do her job and to, hang in there and be a loyal and very supportive, person behind me. And, I feel like, it's been hard on our relationship in terms of all the grief and bad things that have happened, but it's also brought us a lot closer. So, I see things differently. It's changed me, definitely.
Get to some audience questions here. Everett is asking, with everything that has gone on your Stardust Ranch, have you ever had any encounters with men in black?
I have. On 2 different occasions, we have had individuals that showed up in, like a dark blue SUV, kind of like a, GMC or GM product, Suburban, that kind of vehicle. They just pulled up out in front of the gates, in front of the property. And in one particular set of circumstances, I just happened to be standing out underneath the we have an area where we park cars, and there used to be a picnic table in there. And that particular day, a friend of mine was over, and I was cleaning, a bunch of guns. And these men in black got out of the vehicle, and instead of opening the gates and just coming on the property, they literally walked right through them. Or at least that's what it appeared to, to be to both myself and the other witness. And they walked up to me, and I asked them what they wanted. They truly were men in black, which was very strange because it was summertime and it was real hot. And, they had a very weird appearance. Their skin tone was like the color of uncooked chicken, And in Arizona, it's pretty hard not to have some kind of a tan, but these guys looked like they were dead. I mean, they were just sort of an ashen gray, kind of just a weird, funky color. And I asked them what they wanted, and one of the men said to me that he wanted me to stop posting the information that I had been posting on the internet, and that I needed to stop talking about the ranch. And he wouldn't answer any questions. He wouldn't identify himself or anything else. They just turned around and walked away.
You don't believe they were human?
I don't know what they were. I mean, they could have been a bunch of different things. I don't know what they were, but they were humanoid. They had sunglasses on. They were wearing literally, the men in black. They were wearing, dark colors, and they just didn't. I don't know what they were. It was just weird.
Let's get to Jade's question, who is asking, how many aliens have you killed, and were they all the same species?
I don't know how many I've killed, but I would say that I have at least maimed, probably killed 19 at this point.
And were they all coming at you in a threatening nature?
Like I said, they don't have to come at me anymore in order to make me feel like they're threatening. If they are visibly stationary on or in the ranch, in the property, in the house, that to me is enough of a threat that they're even there. That to me they require getting killed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, we see them on a fairly regular basis where they just kind of walk around and they appear and disappear. With those, I don't do anything. If they're not threatening directly, or if they don't seem like they're there, if I don't get a feeling that they're, going to be doing something hostile, at this point, I don't bother. Because we just see them literally walking right through rooms or showing up in places. I had a guest here a few months ago, and she had 2 or 3 of them that showed up while she was taking a bath. And she just looked at them, and they looked at her, and then they turned around and disappeared.
Debbie is asking, whatever happened to the alien that you maimed that you got the piece of flesh from?
I don't know what happened to it. It disappeared. I mean, I have had, in the past, we had, the situation is this. If you cut off the head, the body remains. If you don't cut off the head, then the whole thing disappears unless there's something that remains on the weapon that you use in order to carry out the attack. In the case where we, in several cases, had the body, those were, packaged and transferred to Dr. Levengood. Everything that we ever had was completely sent off to his lab.
How did you learn that if you cut the head off, that the body stays?
That's how it happened. That's how I figured it out. It's like an antenna. If you break the antenna off, that's the end of the broadcast.
So real, so true. So what do you do with the bodies of the aliens you've killed?
Like I said, Dr. Levengood was suspiciously died several years ago. All the samples that he had, which were quite a few at the time, we have no idea what happened to them. We don't know what happened to the lab. All we know is that Dr. Levengood passed, like I said, under strange circumstances, and then his wife apparently died a couple of days later as well. And whatever happened to everything after that, I was never able to get any kind of a straight answer.
So where do you send your information and your evidence now?
I'm not. I don't have any to send.
But it could come up, right?
Well, yeah, I guess if it does, I'll go back to the same process that I went through before, which is I'll go back and look through my registry of guests that I had from being a producer for the Kevin Smith show, and I'll see if I can find somebody new to take responsibility and custodialship of those remains.
Well, in case you need, we do have a resident scientist as part of Spaced Out Radio's behind-the-scenes team who I'm sure would love to get his fingers on some of this, if you need.
That would be very helpful because, in March this last year, I had a great big puddle of fluid, after the dog was killed and after I had, sufficiently taken out my anger on that gray. And I would have loved to have had somebody to send it to.
Well,
please
I can
make
set
sure
that
I
up.
get that information.
Absolutely, I can make sure of that. That'll be very, very easy. Eric is in North Carolina, so I know he would, he's somebody whom I trust. I know he's not government infiltrated or anything like that, so I know it would be very, very easy for us to get that information, to him.
Dave, I'll tell you something. The government people that I've dealt with have been spectacular. They've been just very helpful. They have been tremendous representatives of our government. It surprised me very much because I was expecting the exact opposite. And instead of that, they have been supportive. They have been, just wonderful. I got to tell you, people, I'm not saying people have the wrong idea. I can only speak for myself about my experiences. But our government, in terms of the, I told them the same stories that I'm telling here, and, nothing has changed, but, they had individuals. You mentioned Robert Bigelow. He tried to buy the ranch a number of times, but he didn't want to pay anything for it, but he sent teams of researchers down here to study it, and, they were all amazing. I mean, they were very, professional. They didn't do anything wrong. They didn't act intimidating. They didn't, do anything that I would feel was a breach of any kind of confidence of, any of the individuals that have come to us and, asked to study the phenomena, that had some serious credentials. They've all been tremendous.
John on Twitter is asking, with the extraterrestrials that you have killed, have you ever taken any pictures and allowed people to observe them?
There are pictures of live ones that are on the Weebly, the alienranch.weebly.com site. Quite frankly, a lot of the pictures that we have had, over the years, we were broken into a few years ago, and we had a lot of materials that were stolen. They were in locked files in a room with no windows. That was a block room that had 2 sets of steel doors with 4 different locks on it, and they still managed to get in and get, the computers. They managed to get the pictures. They managed to get slides. They got video. Right now I don't really have anything that I care to release.
I got to ask you. I got to ask you this, because we have debated a number of times on this show, John, that if you had that smoking gun video, if you had that smoking gun photo or whatever, we have talked to numerous experts and even to our listeners, would you release it? And knowing how fickle that the paranormal community is, I'm not sure that I would, because the result seems to be very bombastic at the best of times, and I wouldn't want that type of drama. Are you at that point now as well?
I got to tell you, I've really never been in a position where I felt it was my responsibility to prove to the world what's going on here. I didn't even want to tell the story. The only reason I eventually came out with it was because of the fact that I had one particular individual that kept pestering me over and over and over. And I mean, every single day for months on end to go public. And I finally just got sick of it. And I said, okay, the hell with it. I've tried, not saying anything. I've tried, keeping it a secret. And bad things are still happening. I'm not getting any closer to any kind of a solution. So, maybe what I'll do is just go the opposite direction and put it out there. And, some good things have happened from doing that, in the fact that we met some really nice people. We've met people that, educated me, which I would never have been educated before about this subject. I've kind of gone both directions, but I don't feel any personal responsibility, to prove to everybody. There's Photoshop, there's a million different ways to fake stuff, and no matter what you do, you're always going to hear, there's always going to be some people that instantly gravitate to, oh, the guy's just making it up, he's just trying to do this, he's trying to do that. I've gotten to the point where I really don't care, because you're never going to prove, what you're trying to prove. So I just say, you know what? If you don't want to know, leave it alone. If you want to know, the doors are open, the gates are open. Come and see it for yourself.
Billy is asking about the experience you had earlier this year where I guess you were eating dinner and ETs came in and visited you inside your home.
Actually, that wasn't me. That was somebody else that was visiting the ranch. My wife and I went out to get pizzas, and that particular person had numerous different interactions where she saw grays. She took pictures of them. She took videos of them, and she put them up on her site, and I don't even know what happened to them. I'm not in touch with her anymore, so I really don't, I don't know what the history of it is. I can tell you that I did an interview a couple of years ago live with a, like one of those little cameras on the computer. And behind me, apparently there was a gray. I don't know what, it was just like a 4-footer. And it kept walking back and forth and back at me while I was doing the video and doing the interview. And that is on the internet. Carrie Cassidy with Project Camelot was conducting the interview, and she called me a couple hours later and said, John, did you know that there was a gray behind you while you were doing the interview? And I said, no, I was so sick with the flu, I was barely able to even do the interview. The last thing I was doing was knowing what was behind me while I was doing it. So apparently that's the only time anywhere where there's actually a live video of an alien appearing behind the guest, that's ever been done.
You yourself, do you have a military background?
I do. I don't talk about it, but I do.
Do you think, without going into full detail, whatever you did, John, do you think that maybe that has a play in what you're experiencing at the ranch?
No, I don't think it's related at all.
All right, let's get to Claudia's question. She's saying, John, do you feel a different type of energy in the air before the extraterrestrials appear? Can you tell if they are close by?
Not always, but there are some times when we do. Very often we see a lot of activity in the sky, and then a few hours later we'll begin to have experiences. I've gotten to the point where, like with the dogs are particularly watchful and aware. And plus I have a scarlet macaw that anytime that one of these creatures shows up, she starts screaming, "Bad dog, bad dog." And so she's kind of like my Flintstones alien, detector. I mean, she literally knows when they're going to be around. And if she sees one, she starts screaming. It's the only time that she screams and says those words. So she's very good at being able to figure out, if there's a gray around. I've had her now for 30 years, and, she's probably the best detector there is.
So when you are having these experiences like you did with Carrie Cassidy, and to be honest with you, as you were talking about that, I just pulled up that video. When they are in your house, are they completely silent? Like, can you hear them running around?
You don't really hear them. In some cases, like I said, I can smell them, and I would tell you, I have a terrible sense of smell. I mean, my wife would be the first one to point that out. But I can smell them. They smell like garbage. So, if I smell that, then I definitely know that, one's around.
Earlier in the show, we asked you about the animal reactions on your property. Have you lost any animals due to any type of mutilation?
Yes, we've lost 3 horses, and that was back in the about 1997, I think it was, or 98. We had 3 horses over a period of about, I want to say, a year to a year and a half that we found that were mutilated. And, that was when everything really started getting super serious for me because, to hurt an animal, I mean, I'd rather have them hurt me before they'd hurt an animal. And, I was just beside myself over that. I filed reports with the Arizona Livestock Board, filed reports with the Sheriff's Department. We followed everything to the letter. We had, photographs, everything. So, it's pretty well documented.
Joe is asking, have you ever shot an alien?
No, I do not believe in using guns in the house. Bad idea, especially when you live in a brick house. I got a lot of expensive stuff, and quite frankly, I don't want a big screen TV or something like that, to get a bullet hole through it. Samurai sword works great. It's a very elegant weapon. It's very effective, and I'm very pleased with the results from that.
Do they know when you're coming after them?
Oh, yeah. I can honestly say that I think the reason we have less and less confrontations is because of the fact that, they probably have a, ET file on me that's, as thick as a phone book. And, so I think they, for the most part, do just about everything they can at this point to avoid me.
Yet they still keep coming back, even though you could be visualized as a threat.
Well, I think they've been coming here for thousands of years. I don't think that this is anything new. I think they see us as the interlopers. We're the pests. We're the for lack of another word, we're the aliens, And I think that because of the portals, they've been around these portals, for a long, long time. And, there's been various different Native American tribes that have been out here. They have legends about things in the area. We found bones over the years, human bones, from, digging stuff up and burying things here on the property. So I know that, there's probably a very long history about this property that I'm never going to have a whole lot of information about.
Over in the Revolution Radio chat room, Stardust is asking, coincidentally his name is Stardust Man, he is asking, how far is the ranch located from a cross of ley lines?
I'm not really sure. I know that this ranch, Skinwalker, and there's another ranch, I think that's somewhere up near Sedona. They're all pretty much aligned with each other. So what I would think is that there's probably more than a passing, casual relationship there.
So they're on the same latitude, I guess, or longitude?
Yeah, I mean they kind of stack up like vertically on a map. With us being the lowest on the scale. The ranch that's up near Sedona would be the next one. I guess there's also one, somebody was telling me the other day, that's up near Flagstaff. And then there's Skinwalker up in Utah.
Very interesting indeed. Why do you think that these happenstances are only happening in certain types of areas? Have you ever thought about that? I mean, like there's Skinwalker, there's your place, but we don't see a lot of them happening. Do you think these are just special places on the ground that maybe Mother Earth has helped create?
No, I think they're special places, but I think they're part of a portal system that is around the world. I think the portals go all the way back to Sumerian and even Atlantean times. And I think that they're just, there's a bunch of them that are still probably in semi-working order. If you've got the energy and you've got the ability to be able to learn how to trigger and use them, I think they'd probably still be just functional. But the thing about it is that so many of these, antiquities, they cover them up. They try to prevent anybody from having access to them. I don't think government wants people to have information about them or about other locations around the world. But I they're still there.
When you finally sell the ranch, what do you plan on doing with your life? How do you retire after this?
No, I'm not going to retire. I'll never retire. I'm 58 years old, and however long I have left, I'm going to use it for the best I can to help as many people and animals and to try to make a difference in the world that I can. I devoted my life a long time ago to trying to do good things. And, so, yeah, I'll leave eventually, hopefully, and I'll go and pursue the things that I want to do.
Do you think that you'll be followed by the aliens? Do you think you'll be able to have that relationship? Do you think they'll follow you, or do you hope to just leave it all behind the day you decide to move away from the ranch?
I don't think this is ever going to end. I think that the amount of activity that we've experienced, the fact that, we've been other places around the world, and the energy from the portals, it's like Bluetooth. And so I think wherever we go, we're still going to be connected to it. So I don't imagine it's ever going to be over with. Hopefully the Greys will, decide that, they want to stay here and continue to do whatever they want to do here. So I'm not looking forward to any further contact with them. I mean, that could stop tomorrow and I'd be very pleasantly surprised. But in terms of the other ETs, yeah, I'm fine with staying in contact with them. I see that as a privilege, and I see that as something that hopefully, will eventually manifest into something that's good for the world.
So how have you and your wife then been able to stay sane through all of this? Because it would drive many couples to split apart because of the pressure, the anxiety, the experiences, never knowing when they are going to happen. How have you been able to stay strong with your wife?
Faith, more than anything. I mean, we got together because of the fact that God blessed us, and, we've been honest and faithful with each other the entire time. And, we don't keep secrets. And, we've tried to be there. We fight like cats and dogs sometimes and, scream at each other and the whole works. But, the bottom line is that, if that's just part of being in a relationship. So, we've always been straight up with each other. And, I do the best I can. She does the best she can. And, we just accept each other and try to meet somewhere in the middle.
Still, it's had to be trying at times because of what has happened on the property.
Well, there was the blame game for a while. Well, if you love me, you just walk away from this place. And I told her, I said, look, it's not that I want to stay here, but, I got a bunch of horses, and, I'm not going to just, throw the horses away in order to satisfy you. You find me a place that I can move these horses to where, I can be around them and continue to work with them. That's an acceptable alternative location that we can afford. Great. I'm ready to move. It never happened. We found other places that we wanted to go to, but the problem was that we just didn't have the money. And, when you sink all your money into one hole, you're stuck. And that's where we've been. We've been stuck this whole time.
Couple questions coming from Claudia. She says, has anyone ever done any experiments on the land to see what energy it has on it, like they do after a crop circle appears on someone's land?
We've had, people that have come out and studied it, that unfortunately we did not get any real information from it. Bigelow promised to give us a full report of everything that he did. And they brought 3 truckloads of equipment, and different operators. And, they had everything from, he wanted to dig up the property because he believes that there's something underneath the property that is the cause of everything here. But I told him, I said, if you're going to dig up the property, you're going to buy the property, because I don't want to deal with trying to put it back together when you get done. And that just never, materialized. But we have one particular location on the property, and everybody that comes to the property, that walks the property, always ends up going to that same location. I don't know why. I guess it's because they feel something at that particular spot. But inevitably, it always happens. And the more psychic, the more intuitive, the more in touch with this whole phenomena that people are, the faster they gravitate to that one spot.
Really seems like you need a delivery of Canadian beer, my friend. Really seems like you need a delivery of Canadian beer. Claudia's second question for you is, and by the way, I would personally deliver that, just so you know. I would.
Well, you're welcome to come down anytime you want to.
Thank you. Thank you. Hopefully when it's 120 degrees and I can melt some of my winter coat off, if we can use that properly. But Claudia's second question is, have you ever noticed black helicopters flying over your land?
I have. I've actually had a situation that was kind of a funny situation a number of years ago. We used to have a big tent that we had rescued a bunch of parrots, and that the parrots were in the tent. And when you feed parrots, they're very sloppy and they drop seed all over the ground. And being a tent and being warm, it had a tendency to kind of create a jungle around it. And one day I was out watering the birds, and next thing I know, I see all these black helicopters hanging over the property. And then I see the news helicopters hanging over the property. And next thing I see this parade of police cars out in front. So I'm thinking to myself, gee, I wonder what this is about. So I go out to the front gates, and lo and behold, I meet one of the officers, and he looks at me and he says, we need you to open the gates. And I said, sure, what are you looking for? And they said, well, we need to go in and inspect that building in the back. And I said, which one? And they said, well, the one that has the plastic around it. And I said, oh, the bird tent? And they're like, yeah, that one. So we all walked back of the property, and go in there. And, by this time, there's guys coming down out of the helicopters on ropes and stuff, and I'm just like, wow, this is a big deal. What are you looking for? And this guy says to me, well, you're growing marijuana in this tent. And I said, really? Not that I'm aware of. There's sunflowers in there from, the birds dropping sunflower seeds, and maybe that's what you're detecting. And so he sent in 2 or 3 guys to go in there and look for the alleged marijuana growing there. And there was, of course, no marijuana. And they came out looking a bit, strange. They were pretty upset. And, I just looked at him. I said, what'd you find? And the guy brought out 2 or 3 of these great big 5 or 6 foot tall sunflowers. And he said, I think this is what we were seeing that we were detecting. I guess they'd used some kind of thermal imaging or something, and they had thought that we had, big marijuana plants growing there, which we didn't. And, so the whole thing was over with, and they left, and it was on the news, apparently. And, so that's probably the biggest example of black helicopters that we've had, on the property.
All right, let's get to Andrew's question here. He is asking, have you ever found any ancient relics on your property, something beyond arrowheads and axes?
We had actually, again, when we had this team of individuals that did some investigation here on the property, there was a gray apparently on the back of the property that one of the investigators shined a very powerful laser in the face of it, and it dropped what we now call the alien artifact. And it's a black rock that's smooth to the touch, except that it has a very intricate, almost like a sun-like design cut all the way through the rock. And, so that would be probably the biggest artifact that, that we've actually discovered here on the property. We have come across a few shards of pottery. Those look pretty old. Again, we have found, old bones and things like that look like they were, ancient. I don't even know what happened to any of that stuff, but, there's been plenty of stuff that's popped up over the years.
Gloria is asking, is there an abundance of owls on your property? Because owls always seem to be synonymous with grays.
I did not know that, but yes, we have these, we have both gray owls, and we also have, I think they're called snow owls. They're white. They're very beautiful. They're very big. In one case with the gray owls, they seem to, when we would go out to feed, my wife would water the horses and I would feed them. They would literally seem to follow her around on the property. And that was very disconcerting to me because I was afraid that maybe they had rabies or something. And I mean, if this one particular owl, no matter where she would go on the property, as long as it was outside, that owl would follow her. So, again, that's interesting that the listener picked that up.
All right, let's get to Bob's question. Bob is asking, John, are you not worried for yours or your wife's safety after all of this time?
Honestly, a long time ago, I made peace with my demise. And so, I'm not really particularly concerned about it. I'm 58. I've lived what seems like 3 or 4 lifetimes during this one. So, I accept whatever happens. In the case of my wife has been exposed to some very severe radiation from an almost an abduction. And she has been treated for it extensively, in terms of being studied to find out what that disease is. And unfortunately, they say that it's terminal and that there's nothing that can be done for her. And so about once every year and a half, she goes in and they redo the tests. So far, it's not progressed very far. So we're very grateful about that. And we're hopeful that at some point it can be eradicated. But, we made our choices. We've lived with them. And I guess we'll have to accept whatever the final consequences because of it.
I'm sorry to hear that. And, thoughts and prayers to the health of your wife. I know a lot of people who have been taken or have made contact who have asked the benevolent species if there is any way to help. Have you ever tried going down that road to see if they would for your wife's future?
At the time that we got the diagnosis on her, we weren't having any direct, immediate contact to be able to ask them. And I have never, at this point, really gotten a super straight answer out of them. So the fact that she's doesn't seem to be getting any worse. I don't know if they've already done something and we just don't know about it, or what the situation is. Right now, it's just kind of up in the air.
Can you call in the visitation?
You mean like?
Wish it to happen and they show up?
No, not really. I mean, pretty much, like I said, that I have to go through an intermediary, and I get with her, and then I say, hey, could we possibly set up some kind of a meeting? And, it might take a month or two to get it done. Unfortunately, the more we've had, like I said, contact with 3 or 4 races. The more that you try to get in contact with them, the more reluctant they seem to be to do it. You almost have to act like you don't care, like it's almost like a social meeting. The other thing is trying to get all 4 races in the same place at the same time is like trying to herd cats. Very ineffective. So, we just take it as it goes. I know it sounds real casual and it's probably not what people want to hear, but it's just how it is.
How has the paranormal activity been around your property? Do you get a lot of ghosts?
I'm not sure we can tell the difference between ghosts and anything else. It's like Walmart. It's one-stop shopping. We get things that float around in the room. We see water bottles floating around. I've seen a couple of little dogs floating around a couple of times. We get objects that get taken and misplaced and displaced, and then all of a sudden they'll fall. It seems like they're falling out of thin air, and they just land right in front of you. We've had, like I said, we have so many things that happen on a regular basis. We have workmen that show up here to do work on things, and, they have interactions, so, unless it's something that's extremely just, stark contrast to the regular things that go on here, where I don't even really, pay much attention to them.
Elizabeth, who had the braiding of her horse in Colorado, is asking, how do you avoid being paralyzed or mind controlled by these beings?
I don't know. I can't answer that. I can only tell you that I don't seem to be as likely to be subject to that as maybe other people do. I know with my wife, they can basically put her into a trance, or if she's asleep, they can prevent her from waking up. I don't know. I don't really feel fear. It's just not my emotional vocabulary. Probably an awful lot of how I am today is the fact that I've been through this for so long that I'm just numb. I don't even react anymore to a lot of it. When you've been through something a few thousand times, you just say to yourself, yes, so what?
Has all of this experience brought you closer to God spiritually?
I've been close to God my entire life. I've never felt that He's abandoned me. I've never felt a decrease in my faith. If it weren't for God, I would be absolutely nothing and nobody, and I would have nothing. So, as far as I'm concerned, God has done nothing but love me and support me.
And obviously giving you the strength to deal with this.
Pretty much.
Claudia is asking, have you ever had any First Nations, American Indians, come onto your land to perform any types of ceremonies?
Yes. we've had several different times. We have a lot of tribal activity that is south of us. I mean, really, here in the valley, if you want to interact with tribes, this is the place to do it here in Oklahoma, as far as I'm concerned. And, so we've never had any shortage of that. But again, it's never done anything different. Things are just how they are.
And it's hard to give that answer continually. It is what it is. Like you must get.
Say it, but it is.
So, at what point, John, do you feel that you are going to bite your tongue and just walk away? Is it when the ranch sells, or do you see yourself doing that beforehand?
Well, I mean, if the finances work out so that we can leave early, I'd be out of here tomorrow. I mean, I have an entire action plan. I have properties that I want to get. I have everything planned out. I mean, part of my whole, remaining sane and being able to deal with this whole thing is that I have a very clear picture of what I want to do and where I want to do it and how I'm going to do it. And, if the money dropped into the account tomorrow, guess what? I would be in action mode big time. I would be down on my knees, probably a little bit in tears, saying thank you, and just being so grateful to be able to move on and do something, that I know I can do. Our plans are amazing for the future. I can't wait to do them. You talk about having something to really look forward to in your life. I do. I have some really cool things to look forward to.
All right. My listeners love to tease me about garden gnomes and my absolute fear of these little red-hatted bastards running around, and bugging me. And I got this one listener named Adam who wants to know if you have any garden gnomes or gnomes in general running around the property, because he's only asking this to bug me, because what's going to happen here is my Twitter feed, my Facebook feed is all going to light up with garden gnome pictures now, and it drives me nuts absolutely every time, but the audience is going to absolutely spaz on me about it. So do you have any gnomes running around your property?
Not that I'm aware of. No gnomes and no hobbits, and, there's no little people that I'm aware of.
So in other words, it is completely Dave-proof, which is good. I appreciate that.
I don't think you'd have an issue.
That makes me happy. You have no idea how much better I'm breathing. That's one of the reasons why I honestly have not taken James Gilliland up on his offer to come down and stay a weekend at the Stardust Ranch, because I know with my luck, I would be running into some of these damn garden gnomes. And yeah, here come the pictures. Here come the pictures on Facebook right now. These people are evil, man. They are evil, with their torture of me. So, anyways, that's honestly one of the reasons why I have never gone down to James Gilliland's ranch. I got the invite. I'm just scared that one of them damn garden gnomes is going to awaken and chase me around, I really am.
Well, you have to wear gnome repellent.
If you can find me some, I would be more than willing to trade you really good cold beer for it.
I think we can work something out.
Perfect. I got a question on Twitter from Andrew here, who is asking, when you and your wife saw that bright white light in your home, was it constant or was it strobing? And was there any sound associated with that light?
No, there was no sound. It was a constant light. It was literally, imagine kind of like a tunnel, from literally one end of the house all the way to the other. And the house is a pretty big house. It's about 3,500 square feet. So it's not a little shack. And, these guys, what was weird is I could see, like trees and grass and a path, the road they were on. It was like having a little snippet of a video, that you were, watching on YouTube or something. You could just see the whole thing. It was truly one of the stranger experiences of my life.
I forgot to ask you, do you have children?
No.
So when you have relatives come over to visit, then do you protect them or try and shield them from everything that's going on? Do they even believe you?
I don't even have relatives. My family's dead. But as far as my wife's family, they don't visit, so it's a non-issue.
Yes, I wish my relatives wouldn't visit.
Well,
it makes life so much more peaceful at that point. By the way, I'm getting all the gnome repellent sent to me now on Facebook too. So thank you, gentlemen. I really do appreciate that. In regards to the activity,
Limburger cheese is gnome repellent.
Limburger cheese. I think that's people repellent too.
Well, maybe, but, hey, as long as it knock off the gnomes, you're in good shape.
You know what? That's good advice. That's sage advice. Thank you so much. With the amount of activity that happens, is it daily? Is it nightly? Is it something that happens, say, once every 5 to 10 days? Have you developed any patterns on the activity that happens on the ranch?
I used to keep track. I used to literally have a program that I tried to run to be able to, come up with some kind of linear, way to figure these things out. Truthfully, you just can't. I mean, they happen as they happen. Even with storms, we get these, what they call haboobs, which are extreme dust storms to the point where, 200 to 300 feet in the air, you have a huge wall of dust. You can't see more than, 2 or 3 feet in front of you. We get 70 to 80 mile an hour winds, driving rain, hail, floods. It doesn't stop it from happening.
What kind of ships have you seen?
Well, I've seen a whole bunch of triangles. I've seen a bunch of saucers. I've seen, I guess they call them rods. I've seen, what's funny is that the military used to send out their drones when they first had the beginning of drones before they became a common part of the language. I didn't even know what a drone was, but we kept seeing these what apparently were prototypes of drones, out here. So, we've seen all sorts of things. I'm not saying that everything that we see is, absolutely alien in nature, but we have seen ships that, literally in a blink of an eye can move all the way across the horizon. We've seen ships that when they get to a mountain, they seem like they go right through the mountain and come out the other side and keep going. So, we see a lot of weird stuff.
20 years from now, when you get an opportunity to look back at this and you're far beyond the farm and the ranch and you've moved on to your new life, how do you think you're going to look back at this, John?
I don't know. I guess I'll just look back at it as, I'm glad I'm not in Arizona. I'm glad I'm not on the ranch anymore. I'm glad I don't have to deal with the heat. I'll just be like, yeah, it happened. It's, one of those things.
We only have about 2 minutes left with you tonight, and I want to say thank you so much for taking the time to do this show with us, because your story is absolutely amazing, and I really appreciate you sharing it with our audience. Is there anything out there, John, that you would like the people to know, because you have so many people trying to crash your ranch and people who are interested in learning more about it? Is there a message that you have for everyone?
I would just tell people that you before you make up your mind one way or the other, come and take a look at it yourself. Or, hit me up on email or whatever. I'm happy to answer questions. We always encourage people to make donations to the horses at hopefulhooves.org, or to, send us a letter or a check or whatever at the ranch. The address is 14700 South Tut Hill Road, Buckeye, Arizona, 85326. We try to treat everybody with respect, and we just ask people to be thoughtful and respectful and do the same with us. We're not out there trying to do anything other than just stay alive, take care of our animals, and try to be the best people we can be.
Well, I think it's absolutely fantastic what you guys are doing, and the fact that you've been able to last there for 22 years absolutely dumbfounds me. I mean, the strength you and your wife have in order to do that. I don't know if I could last that long, as much as it would intrigue me to have some sort of contact like you're having on a regular basis. I don't know if I could do 22 years worth. That's a real testament to the people that you and your wife are, my friend.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
I'll get you to hold on. I'm going to start wrapping this thing up. Now, if you want to check out John Edmonds' website, all you got to do is go to alienranch.weebly.com. That's it, alienranch.weebly.com. He blogs on there. He does absolutely everything that you can learn more about what is going on at the famous Stardust Ranch down in Arizona. We want to say thanks to John Edmonds for coming on for the full show and sharing his story. Absolutely incredible. Tomorrow night on the program, we stick in the realm of UFOs. Author Robbie Graham is going to join us. We're going to be talking about Hollywood's influence on UFOs and extraterrestrials. Why is it always so negative? What are they trying to tell us? Is it all staged? We'll find out tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. In the background, you hear Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking away with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official sound of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. We absolutely appreciate Mr. B giving us permission to rock with him on a nightly basis. Want to remind you, you can follow us all over social media, on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show, Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR. Don't forget our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. That's where all our archives will be, including this show in about 10 minutes. But most of all, I want to say thank you to all of our listeners at home, in your cars, at work, in Twitter, in the Twitterverse, that's what I'm trying to say, and in the chat rooms, on Facebook and on Spreaker. You guys have been absolutely amazing. And also, don't forget, we are trying to improve this station. We need your help. Go to GoFundMe.com/We Own the Night. We have a goal that we've set. We would appreciate your help, because together, my friends, we own the night. I will talk to you in 21 hours from now. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Have a good one. I'm out.